All right, welcome back to Wheel Friends Podcast, the comedy podcast that exists in the world of bicycling. I'm your host, Craig. Joining me today is my friend Joel Campbell of Borderless Media and the Lamppost Podcast. So welcome.
Thank you for having me. Still getting used to being on the other side of the microphone. Borderless Media is a multimedia project, mostly encompassing a magazine and a podcast, The Lamppost. But it's kind of a response to these events happening around the world, and you feel like this kind of sense of hopelessness because they're like far away in another place, and you don't feel like you have any connection to it, right?
Yeah.
Like
what the hell can I do from here?
Right. And for some people, they kind of go, oh, I'll join like Amnesty International, or I'll give money to like Human Rights Watch, or I'll do this kind of, I mean, it's not bad. It's just kind of, it's like tithing or something. It doesn't really, to me at least, seem like I'm actually having a relationship with what's at stake. So Borderless Media is kind of examining what are active steps you can have in these larger issues. What are ways that people have done it successfully, and what are ways that people have thought about but haven't ever really gotten a chance to try? That's kind of vague. Let me think of a more concrete example. The best story I can think that kind of encapsulates that tension is, you've been like slowly building up with the political talk on your podcast over the past few episodes.
Leaking out.
Yeah, it's like slowly coming out. But this isn't so political, but it's definitely trending that way. On the eve of the Iraq War, the UK was used as like an ammunition depot for the NATO forces going into Iraq, because the largest NATO base in the world is in Scotland. So to get ammunition from an actual like manufacturer in the UK to this base, so it could be sent overseas to Iraq to start the war, it goes by train. And only 2 people in the world know how to operate that train, because it's a very specific segment of rail. And those 2 workers looked at each other one day and were like, yeah, we don't really like this idea. We're not going to transport this ammo from the depot to the base, and went on strike, right? So they used their labor power to have an impact on the war.
Yeah, find another person who
Yeah,
knows this train.
yeah, exactly. So it's like, that's a really minute example, but that's kind of
Like
those...
the power of small numbers.
The power of like direct action in these kinds of things, rather than like hoping that like your senator or someone hears your cry, and then does work for you. This is kind of like looking at relationships that we have with these international affairs in local vicinities, and organizing and acting on those levers of power, rather than abstract organizations like Amnesty International. It's that kind of focus, which I think this makes it your most political podcast now. But the reason...
I don't know if there's like a political needle to cover like
Yeah,
that last
I'm not
bit,
sure.
so I think we're all right.
It's kind of... Yeah, okay. So the reason that... one of the reasons I started it was because of transportation. And I used to be a big bike nerd when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And then I like went through this period without having a bike, and then I rediscovered it. And the like thought of how do I bike around a city, and what kind of relationship I have with the city because of that desire to bike around it, do I now have? And that's kind of like a lot of what we talk about on Lamppost, are those more minute relationships. Some people see biking as political, and that's not usually something that's discussed. I just love doing it. So it's been interesting to see that part of the biking community.
So you've spoken with the Spoke folks a few times. For example.
One of our writers went and discussed Spoke Folks with Martel, because Spoke Folks is a cooperative, which is a non-hierarchical form of working, which is something that we're very interested in. Because if you want to talk about you having more power in a certain relationship over, let's say, like your work life or your housing situation or something like that, cooperatives are kind of this nice, worker-run enterprise. That relationship is really interesting to look at, and seeing Spoke Folks operate is really interesting to examine. So Luke went to talk to them about that, and also about like biking in general, just because it's really strange, but you don't really hear a lot about bikes in mainstream media.
Yes. If If I could, I would use all my power to lobby for positive representations of bicycling in film and television. And I'd also suggest that anytime a motorist texts on screen, they should also immediately crash their car.
You gotta learn the lesson.
Yeah.
I mean, it's funny. The big bicycle lobby.
Yeah.
If only.
Yeah, so far it seems to only exist in satire, but I think there's a resistance there.
Slowly but surely they flock.
So yeah, you like me, you and I had like a similar bicycle upbringing. I'm pretty sure. Like I was a country boy first, and so the bike ride when you're growing up in Summit Township was like just up and down the block a mile or two, which a block was a mile long.
Right. I grew up in Fremont, and those are some really long country roads. Yeah. I found an old bike log I kept as a kid.
What?
Yeah, I would like keep track of like how many miles I would go in a day, because I used like the rudimentary Google Earth to like map how far I'd go, and that, which is why I like am such a nerd for Strava. Like it's so bad. But I would map out, and I found this bicycle log during the summer. I'd go on like 32-mile bike rides. That's pretty impressive. Like because I can't
Young
do
Joel
32
was
miles.
living it up.
Yeah. And then young Joel came to the big city.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure for you was kind of a similar
Yeah.
crash
So
with
like,
reality.
yeah, it was. I don't know. It was suddenly the bicycle made sense. Like before, it was like this is just a leisurely thing. Like I need to go down, see what's over there. I need to go pick cherries down at the end of the street. So then you move to a city. It's like, oh well, I'm a half a mile from a cool place. Or, like I'm so close to all this stuff now. And it just the bicycle just really clicks suddenly. And I think I don't remember the statistic, but it's something like 80 or 90% of all trips within 4 miles of the home are done by a car.
Yeah.
And like 4 miles for a bike ride is not a long distance. Like,
No.
so.
Well, I think a lot of people get put off because of the way that we talk about distance from a car perspective. 4 miles, it sounds like a short distance when you're driving it, but then like you're standing there at the front door with your bike and you're like 4 miles for the first time.
Yeah.
And you're like, that's a long way. It's like, I don't know. I think that's that first ride when you realize like how close everything is the most interesting one to me.
Just eye-opening.
Yeah. Because we've talked about that radius before. And so after that, I went and I biked to my job to see like what it was like. Because I looked it up and it's only 5 miles away.
Yeah.
And that was really like shattering. I didn't expect to be, because then I realized like how much of the city was in that radius and like, why was I driving? And
like
I haven't really gone
so
back.
much stuff. Yeah. Like, and it's a myth that cars can move quickly in a city. Like when you take into account like all the red lights you're going to hit, finding parking, walking to and from the building, like it's insane how much time that adds up. Like, and when a car like passes me while I'm biking today earlier, like, they have to zip by me because, oh, I'm a car. I need to I need to prove that I'm faster than a bicycle for some reason. Like, oh, newsflash, I'm faster than you. And so they get to the red light, and then I roll up to the red light next to them, and it's like, and then the light turns green. I have enough momentum. I just keep going. I'm through the intersection, and we do the dance over again. Like, it's not any faster.
Not really. I mean, the parking thing really gets me, because like if you could replace all that parking and put more things there, you could go to more places like quicker because you can bike there now. I always just think about that, like the amount of space given to parking. I'm just a little ticked off because you like go downtown and there's all these massive parking structures.
Yeah.
And you're like, what if you could just put something else there? I'll bike to that.
Like a grocery store.
Yeah, that would be nice.
Thousands of people in the downtown area and very few grocery stores.
Well, you got the Quick and Ease. That's a nice
Kickin'
Kickin'
That's
right.
It's QIK.
Yeah. Easy.
And easy.
Yep. There's that monstrosity. You can really learn how to like cook well from a quick and squeeze.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like it's man, I wish I had some facts and figures in front of me now. But like biking to say a grocery store to buy your groceries, like you can't carry a whole lot of stuff, which is part which is part of the why it's great, because it forces you to be a repeat customer over and over and over again. So like grocery stores that have, are easy to bike to and have ample bike parking, like, they can really make a killing and affect the, they're going to make more money, which in turn they can pay people better, which hopefully
we're hoping. Yeah. I mean, there's this really weird, thing about biking around, because cities used to be more concentrated, right?
Yeah.
And like the car culture came from having suburbia, really. And you kind of like bike around a place like Grand Rapids and you see like the remnants of the city that used to be, like all the movie theaters that were down. Like there was one on Division. Like, I think there were like 2 on Division. There's Wealthy Street, obviously. And instead of going out to like some middle, the middle of like a swamp, because that's all. Like,
they took an old farm and they put like a giant IMAX screen there, and like the filled it with 50 garbage movies.
Yep. It's just like, why couldn't you just do this downtown? Why do I have to drive out here to see a movie? You think of like all those like things that were just like spread out by suburbia, and now people are going, because
they wanted that space.
Yeah.
They stopped trusting each other in that community, and they wanted I want my own independent piece of land.
Right.
And so they get these giant houses in the middle of nowhere with large property, and then they just hate their lives.
Yeah, right. Because you're so lonely, because there's nothing to do at the end of the cul-de-sac. There's no like real vibrancy to it.
I mean, I love where I grew up, but
and
it was like it was farm country, but the nearest business was the Pentwater Wishing Well.
Classic.
Which just sold. It wasn't any like real food. It took me. It was a 14-mile drive to go get food.
Yeah.
If I wanted Taco Bell, like it took forever. So it's interesting coming from like that rural setting. Like it's hard,
Yeah.
So that's why like when we try and pass like bike regulation and stuff, we get a disconnect from rural voters, because they don't see the bicycle the way we do.
No, the only rural voters that really do that are the Amish, but they don't even have pedals on their bikes. So they're not out there really trying hard to change those things.
How dope would it be though if like a bunch of Amish people showed up at the group ride and you're like, what?
Yeah, no one has pedals. They're all just like kicking their feet, and they still beat you in the race. I mean, it'd warm my heart. But yeah, they're like the only people I ever really see in the countryside biking, or like the really determined bikers.
I think there's some Strava segments out near my parents' house, which is wild. Cause like, it's middle of nowhere. If Strava existed when I was a kid, I could have logged them. I don't know. I do miss it out there, because it is truly something to go out on a bike ride through the countryside, though.
Oh yeah.
I'm trying to buy a house right now, know? And so my buddy's like, have you tried looking out in Lowell? And I was like, dude, I got like a bicycling podcast that's pretty urban based. It would be a complete lifestyle change for me to go back to that.
Yeah, just like everything moves slower and lower. Yeah,
I went on a bike ride today. I went straight for an hour, and then I turned right. City, it's like I got this winding maze full of like twists and turns and craziness. Like,
yeah, there's still stuff that I'm discovering about the city's bike paths, like the old garbage dump that is right on the west side. Never realized that could be biked in. I was just sitting there the whole time.
Yeah, it's a tremendous flat space. I was there earlier today, and I was out there, and I was like, I am truly alone right now. And
Yeah.
it felt good to, have something that close to downtown Grand Rapids where you could feel alone.
You're right.
But it's nothing like a wheat field with
No.
a barn and then some wind turbines in the background, which is
Right.
what I see when I go biking through the countryside at my parents' house, and it is sick.
I went because I need to be a nature cyclist at times. I took my bike out to Grand Haven a few weeks ago, and it was still a little like I'm a cold weather biker. I kind of enjoy it more.
I love the oppressive heat.
Really, I can't.
Oh man!
Like if I start sweating too much, I'm like, oh, is this really worth it? Like I like the cold; it keeps me from sweating.
That's when I'm like shirtless and in short shorts, just like sweating my ass off. I love it. So how was your cold weather?
The cold weather biking though. Oh, I loved it. I biked from one public beach all the way. They had just reopened the catwalk.
Yeah.
Which was really nice because they removed the middle railing that used to be like that the people would like climb on during the storms. They removed that, so that's all gone. So it's like this wide open space now, so you can actually just like bike on the middle part of it and be fine. So I did that, and that was like
to like the lighthouse there?
yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
nice.
And I just like stopped at the water's edge and just kind of like looked out and it's like, yeah, I like this. Like
Hell yeah.
You don't really get this in the city. But I do love city biking. It's a lot more adventurous to say the least.
Now I'm imagining small town biking, which still has its nice perks.
Yeah, it's very idyllic.
Because like when I go back to Ludington, like there's an abundance of bicycle lanes and neighborhoods that I know and like alleyways, and it's a really simple grid. You know, it's not like Grand Rapids where they had to build along the riverside, and the west side was designed by a different person, so it's more of the traditional grid. But downtown was by Compo or whatever, and which is why it's all circular and shit.
Right, there's a lot to play with there.
Yeah, but it's super convenient. Just get around in regular squares. But God, biking down to the lighthouse. See the sun in my face. Time for guided meditation.
Yeah,
on the podcast.
Yeah, I go to Wheatland every year, and this year I was thinking, what if I biked to Wheatland and just like
you'd get some crunchy points.
Yeah, for sure. It's like a 40-mile bike ride though, one way, which is fine because like you go there and you're there for a few days, you can kind of like recover from it. But like I haven't given up on that thought, so that might be my end of the year goal.
Yeah, I mean, to put it in perspective, I think 40 miles is about 4 hours of biking.
Yeah,
like
it's about
tops, and it's not bad.
It's not really
when you put it in those terms. I think so.
Right.
Especially since like the White Pine Trail it'll go up. I don't think Wheatland's on here. Wheatland's further north.
Yeah, it's
more than 40 miles.
I honestly couldn't tell you at this. Maybe it's
how far away is Wheatland, Michigan?
Oh, it's Remus.
Wheatland is 66.4 miles away by car.
Oh, wow. Okay, so it's 60 miles. Remembering all the things. I actually like mapped it on Strava to see so that I have it all set. I'm just like getting up there in the mileage.
Yeah.
I think I crossed 25 miles 2 weeks ago.
Nice.
And that was nice. But
well, I think you can do it.
Yeah, I think so.
So you were a country boy, gone city,
Gone
and
city.
then back onto the bicycle recently.
Yeah. My first the country bike I brought with me was stolen. So
that's like how your childhood bike ends its life cycle with you.
And it kind of like neatly ends like that segment of my cycling adventures, right? Because it's like
that's how Disney Pixar's bike story has to end. It's with the bicycle Woody. It's got wood paneling. Goes off to college with Andy and then is promptly stolen by a drunk. And that's the end of Disney Pixar's bike story.
Exactly, right? Like childhood is now over. And you're just kind of like, I get it, but did it have to be like, I don't know. There are some parts of my life where I'm like, that's too cliche of a thing. But it just happens, right?
Yeah.
So then I didn't really bike for a few years. But I always had this, and I missed it. It was like the only form of exercise I feel that like doesn't make me feel silly. Like,
Yeah. Because it's got some practicality to it.
right. And like wearing special clothes to exercise is really not my thing. I just don't understand it.
Agreed.
So cycling is like really nice. Because you just put on the clothes you're going to wear for the day and there you go.
Be yourself.
Yeah. Nothing too crazy about that. And then I don't even know what spurred it. It was probably after Luke's article. I was like, you know what? I should finally go get a bike. And I have like, I went to Spoke Folks and I put together my bike and it was just like this magical experience.
Yeah.
Like, I can't even explain. I was like, wow, this is so much easier than a car. I hate driving because I always had that animosity towards driving. And it was like, finally, something that I can just use to go throughout the city and not drive. And that was the moment.
I think you get like a deeper connection too when you like build it yourself.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
It's not like your first car when you turn 16.
Yeah,
It's
right,
like something you hand like all right, it's time to go to the car, folks. Pick out an old frame.
Don't get crazy.
We're gonna hand assemble this. So, and this is gonna be a 2-ton death machine that we're gonna let you, a 16-year-old, drive, and we're gonna test you once and never again. But hey, go for it. Like handcrafted.
Yeah. Made, mass produced. Yeah, so there's like
Thank God for safety standards and regulations, I suppose.
Yeah, but I'm still upset that we have to do it in the first place.
Yes.
I'm a little bitter about that. My old curmudgeon man. Like, why do I have to drive?
So you got the magic at the Spoke Folks?
The magic came back, and I was like, I got on the first day, and I was definitely a novice because I didn't pump up my tires. And off into the hot September heat I went. And I have never sweated so much in my life.
Yeah. That's that's the baby bird being shoved out of the nest of bicycling.
Yep. They just looked at
Flat
me one
tires,
day.
hot day.
Yeah, just
there you go.
bam. And after that, I realized that I really had to learn how to bike. It wasn't knowing how to put tires on it wasn't enough. I had to learn how to like inflate them.
Yeah.
And patch them and do everything else.
You gotta learn your animal.
Oh yeah, you really do. So like subsequently, I've like gone. I became a member at Spoke Folks, and then I like.
Congrats.
Yeah, it's nice to be a part of that. And then I started buying bike parts and bike gear slowly.
Yeah.
I've just been like accruing.
I'm not into the whole like monthly subscription service, but I think if there was like, hey Craig, $30 a month, we're gonna send you a handlebar,
some bar tape,
stem, like a couple pedals, like and maybe some stickers, cycling cap, maybe not a part every month, but like maybe a t-shirt.
Yeah,
I'd probably be into it.
Yeah. You just like slowly have this,
So then when I find a frame I like, I can go, oh, well, I've got the perfect handlebar for this.
How did it know? Yeah.
But the thing is, none of the parts can make a nice bicycle together.
No.
Like, they're all hideous together.
What they're really trying to get you at is to meet other people in your biking community. So they send the random bike parts to a certain area. So like everyone in the community has the parts to make the right bike. But it's like a hunt to find the right people.
It's an ARG, right? That's the ARG bicycling experience. It's an expensive package.
Oh yeah.
Because sometimes the parts just go to the wrong people, and we got 15 dipshits wandering around with an incomplete bicycle.
You start to see these Franken bikes appear. Well, they tried.
Yeah. Or it's like a community swap type thing where, I'm not using that box of random bike parts there. You want to borrow it so it looks like you're a bike guy? Like,
are you looking for bike props?
Yeah.
You got friends coming over. They haven't seen you in a few years, and you really want to push the emphasis that you are now healthy.
Yeah.
I have 50 different bikes.
I have a hobby.
And I will let you borrow them for the weekend.
How's Joel? I think he's doing great.
He's
really taken to bicycling. He had boxes of bike parts just lying around.
They were just kind of spilled all over the floor. It was a little messy, but the thought was there.
You one night sent me a message that was so uncomfortable because I was like, boy, I don't know if by the way, for future, if anyone's listening to this, never do what Joel did.
Yeah, Joel was a little panicked.
No, it makes sense. It's fine. Joel gets a pass. I know Joel.
Yeah.
Don't message me.
Just don't randomly message Craig.
But you sent me a message that said, I just got hit. What do I do?
Yeah.
And I don't know the events of what happened.
Yeah. It felt, I was very perplexed. The whole event was just kind of the reason I thought there are two people I can text right now, Craig or Dustin. And I also didn't know that you and Dustin knew each other from back in the day. And that was magical because I met Dustin at Grand Valley where we used to work together. And I was like, man, there are only two people I know about, really understand what happens or would know, I thought. And so I was like, Dustin or Craig? And I was like, well, I don't know. Dustin's he's not as in tune with the bike stuff as you are. I think you and the biking community.
Was this whole your
this
roadside panic? Is oh my god,
man, who do I call? I need to call someone, right? Because there's no bike lawyer.
Well, there are.
I mean, not that I'm aware of.
Yeah.
So I was like, man, I don't know what just happened because I was biking home from working on stuff for Borderless. And I was biking down straight, and it intersects with Lake Michigan.
Yeah.
And I think at night it's a pretty well lit area because it's a main street, and the intersection is completely lit. And I have lights on my bike, so I'm like,
it's well lit, and you're lit.
Right.
It's lit.
Shit's
lit.
It was really lit. I think the only way I could make it more visible is neon paint or glow in the dark paint.
Yeah.
So I do the complete stop. I do everything legally. And then I'm like, oh, it's my turn. I'll go. So I get to the other side of the road, and the car next to me that was turning onto Lake Michigan just prematurely hits me. And I was so livid because I had my bag on my saddle bag, and that it had my laptop in it. It got knocked into the middle of the intersection, and it's a Saturday night, right?
Yeah.
I could see cars coming, so I throw it on my bike, and I run to grab that, and then I thought, what do I do now?
Yeah.
So I was like, man, I should text Craig. He's a mature adult who knows these things. I'm a hapless novice at this.
I gotta look up what I said because I feel like this is the only time I'll ever give this advice because I'm not a lawyer. I don't have legal precedence.
Yeah.
But this just seems okay, so January 28th, 12:20 a.m.
Yes.
Hey, so this might be a weird thing to ask.
It was a weird thing.
But I just got hit while biking, and I'm not really sure what to do. And all I said was, call the police. Make sure they don't leave. You said thank you, and I sent a giant NP sticker.
I got those, and I was like, this feels kind of uncomfortable, but I'm kind of scared. So the uncomfortableness, I was like, man, Craig's probably having a nice Saturday night in. He's probably just hanging out, having a good time, and all of a sudden he gets this random text message. Right? So that was
I think that's what I would say always.
Yeah.
If you ever get hit by a car on your bike, don't let them leave. Call the police.
The thing was, they just peeled off, and I didn't think my faculties were not there. And I was I didn't think to even look at the license plate number. So I called the police, and then they never showed up.
Oh man.
Yeah. So I ended up going into the station the next day.
Yeah.
And I filed a report, which was went against every fiber of my being to do. I couldn't, it was a hard one.
Yeah.
So I filed the report, and I haven't heard anything. I don't think that I ever will.
Yeah.
Because it's
I knew a guy who was he worked for the police force in Grand Rapids. He worked with me at my job.
Yeah.
Briefly. And And so I asked him because like I had like a shitty incident with a motorist, which looking back, turns out I was in the wrong. There were 2 turn lanes there, or whatever.
Sure.
I thought one was a lane to go straight, and I thought I was in the turning lane. So they
gotcha.
turned next to me. I cut them off. It was
I
because I thought they're not turning into this lane; they have to go straight, so I can drift over. But whatever.
Gotcha.
But he told me like there's really not a lot they can do,
Right.
especially like if there wasn't any actual your bike got damaged, but
Yeah.
when you put a cost value on that, it seems like something that they like is not worth their time to investigate.
Right.
And as long if you're not injured, there's not really a precedent to do anything,
Right.
Which is shitty.
Right.
It's very shitty.
Because it was a computer I got for Christmas. That is the most expensive thing I had on me. And in any other situation, right? Like if your house gets robbed, like burgled, and your laptop gets stolen, that's covered.
And you feel like you have people on your side, right?
Right. You can actually there's a reason, but you as a biker, kind of, it's almost like you have to acknowledge that you're surrendering control over a lot of things, which is an uncomfortable thing to think and realize. But that's just how America has added on the bike lanes to car culture, because they're just the sides of the road. There's nothing really delineating space between you, the cyclist, and the car. It's just kind of right next to each other.
Yeah. This goofy space that should be, I don't know, shared. They just, it's a mess.
Yeah. It's mostly that, but yeah. That's...
Yeah, cars really took over. It's so if I should send you this article.
Yeah.
It's a great read, but it follows this history of advertising for safety things.
Yeah.
And it's like in the 1950s or whatever, if you even thought about driving your car above 25 in a residential neighborhood, you were the fucking public menace.
Right.
And now it's like, oh, these pedestrians were hit today. Well, what the fuck were they doing in the road?
Right.
It's like, what kind of monster would drive through a residential neighborhood where children play at these unsafe, ludicrous speeds?
Right.
And so this advertising campaign sort of shifts from the cars are the menace. What are you doing? Drive like a reasonable person. These are our children. And then it's it eventually evolves to make sure you look both ways before you cross the street.
Right.
And it puts the blame back on the
pedestrians.
There's another vulnerable road or just a vulnerable person, just in this road here gets pretty narrow over there. It's like a gauntlet of cars. There's always kids running through, and then there's this asshole who drives this big honking truck with the big old Cummins stickers in the back window, and he has to show off his super diesel bullshit, so you hear that thing up the street. And I'm like, you fucking choach, what are you doing?
Right. Yeah. The car is the most weirdly advertised object to me, I think, in all of American history, because it goes from that very hated thing to now you watch car commercials and it's I love my Subaru, right?
Yeah.
And it's very such an inversion, and I feel a lot of it has to do with the fact that otherwise you couldn't sell cars, because really I think cycling makes me realize how redundant they are in the city.
Yeah.
You're just it takes me the same amount of time to get from the same place in a car and on a bike. That doesn't make sense. So there's no you can't ever say in a city oh, it takes longer to get from here to there, because it adds up in a car. And just why would I drive then?
Yeah.
Frankly.
Yeah, it's I think the average cost of car maintenance a year is over $4,000.
Yeah.
Average cost of bike maintenance a year is about $400, and that's a livable amount.
Yeah.
Just yeah, in comparison, it's 10%.
Just
shit.
What, 3 months of car insurance on average?
Yeah. It's nuts.
Yeah. It's definitely made me miss the bike lanes of Canada, which I saw when I went up to Montreal last year, and I just fell in love because they're beautiful. They're separated from cars, and it's just a very idyllic.
Are they painted? I love a solid painted bike lane.
They're it's two-way painted bike lanes, and then there's a hedge, and then the sidewalk, and then the parked car lane and then active traffic, and it's
that sounds great. Hopefully with like lots of roundabouts and shit that slows cars down, because that's yes. Yes.
The car curse.
Yeah, I don't dunk on cars enough. I like, it's weird because
I'm a car dunker.
like I rely on this car right now, and because I have it, it's like this really easy crutch to lean on. But if it slipped out from under me, like it'd be so great because I could just finally go and be totally bike. But because I still have it and it's not going anywhere, it's easy for me to be like, well, Subway is right over up a hill. It's windy.
It's just too cloudy today.
Yeah. It just doesn't feel right. These aren't perfect biking conditions. It's easy to lean on these. Dummies. Like these. I mean, they're good excuses.
Oh yeah,
they're valid points.
The rain is the
Yes.
the consistent argument.
Yeah.
But I've seen like you can buy like rain gear, and I thought, I mean, I'd look a little ridiculous, but that's it. That's the main thing I have to transition to before I can go bikeless or carless.
Carless, yeah.
Not going bikeless, but once I can figure out the rain, because one day I made the mistake of, I was like, oh, it stopped raining. The roads are just wet. Like, what could go wrong? And I don't have any protection for my tires, so it just shot cold water up on my legs the whole way home. It was like wildly uncomfortable.
Yeah. Fenders are the key.
Yeah, really would like some.
All right, so that's another episode of Wheel Friends. Joel, thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
If you want to do your plugs,
Oh, do my
I'm
plugs?
sure you have a whole
Yeah,
list
sure.
of things
I mean,
in front of you.
the easiest one is to just go to borderlessmedia.org. That's really straightforward. Or you can find us on Facebook. Those are the easiest two.
Sick. And then Lamppost is
It's on iTunes, and it will be on Spotify shortly. I've been working on that one. So
yeah, they take forever.
Yeah, a
But
little
yeah.
bit longer. So iTunes is the easiest one to find the Lamppost on.
And do you have a date set for when you guys are starting up again, or?
Yeah, actually, this coming week, I haven't set a concrete date yet.
Soft release in the next couple weeks.
Yeah, it's coming out soon.
And also, a reminder, check out the 3 a.m. Alley Dog that's coming up
Sunday, May 13th.
at 3 a.m. Meet at City Hall, Calder Plaza, downtown Grand Rapids, Michigan. You can find the Facebook event for that at 3 a.m. Alley Dog, but 3 a.m. doesn't have a space in it. For the Wheel Friends, you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all that jazz. For any other inquiries, you can shoot an email to wheelfriendspodcast@gmail.com. Go ride your bike.